Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Visordown. My name is Toad, and today we are coming to you from Bangkok in Thailand, where we have just taken part in the press launch for the new TVS Apache RTR 310. If there are elements of this bike, like the inclined reverse engine that you see down there, where the intake is on the front and the exhaust is on the back, that's because TVS actually make the BMW G310s and G310 GSs. A lot of that stuff that you see here is sort of shared across the models. What exactly is it? It is a naked street bike putting out a bit more than 30 bhp. I'm going to go through all the engine specs in a very short while. But for me, what this represents is probably one of the most technologically, if not the most technologically advanced bikes in that lightweight A2 class of naked machines. This thing is absolutely dripping in tech. Now, some of it is quite handy, some of it's got good benefit to safety, and some of it I think is superfluous and probably doesn't really need to be on a bike of this capacity. But needless to say, it's there. So what have we got? We have got cruise control on this thing, which isn't unheard of in this range, but you've also got something called cornering cruise control, where the bike will actually detect the lean angle through the IMU and it will adapt the speed of the bike in a corner so that you don't have to cancel the cruise control. So as you tip the bike into a sweeping turn without using the brakes, it will adapt the maximum speed of the bike for you. As an added benefit, you can also shift gears with the cruise control engaged. So I think you can change a maximum of twice. So 2 gear changes without it disengaging the cruise control. So when you come up to a corner, you've got cruise control on, you can dab it down a couple of gears, get a bit of engine braking, and then start to tip the bike in, and the bike will just automatically adjust and adapt your speed for that. You've also got dynamic front headlight, and you've got a dynamic rear headlight. So the front headlight will auto dip and auto come on. The rear headlight will flash when you immediately push the brakes, and then it will go solid after a couple of seconds of braking. That, I think, is a brilliant feature. As a rider who, when I'm out and about and I'm braking and I'm just riding on the road normally in the UK, I do sort of tap the rear brake as I'm coming up to a stop, because it's a bit easier to notice a flashing red light than it is a solid one. So I think that is a really, really good feature. Another thing that you've got on this thing is riding mode. So I've just checked my notes. You've got 5 inclusive of the Supermoto riding mode, which switches off the rear ABS and the traction control and lets you have all the fun of the fair on this little lightweight bike. This is a bit of a weird one, and considering that we're in Bangkok, it would have been a prime time to test it out, but it has been getting on for about 40 degrees today. The humidity has been 100% humidity, and it's just been absolutely roasting. But it's got a climate controlled seat. So listen to the tech presentation earlier on. It works in a similar way to those little camping fridges that you can get that have got a little condenser in them that just sort of takes the heat out of the air and converts it into cold. And then it's got a couple of fans underneath the seat which are supposed to sort of send that air up to your backside as you're riding along. Could I feel that today when I was wearing full one-piece leathers out on a track where it was absolutely the hottest I've ever been? No, I couldn't feel a bloody thing. I didn't even know if the system was turned on. I think somebody said that it was on the particular bike I was riding, but it's there. And I don't doubt that if the weather wasn't quite as rabidly hot as it was today, and you were wearing some thinner motorcycle jeans or textiles or something, you might feel a little bit of benefit from that. You've also got a TFT. The TFT is actually quite good. It's nice and easy to read. The menu functions are all really easy to navigate. You don't need to sit down and really get to know the bike to figure out where to go through the menus, and that's a big bonus, because all too often motorcycle manufacturers can make TFTs more style over function, and then they become more and more convoluted and complex, and that just generally pisses me off. Wheelie control on a 35 horsepower bike might sound like a bit of overkill, but it's there, and it's I didn't feel it on the track today. Couldn't get the front wheel to lift at all. Not even totally sure if the system was switched on or not on the session that we did. But you've also got slope dependent lift control. So if you're coming down quite a steep incline and you give it a big handful of front brake, it will moderate the ABS so that the rear wheel doesn't lift, which is quite a common function on a lot of super bikes and sports bikes, but not so much seen in this kind of lightweight budget bike class. So I've spoken about the electronics. I'm just going to quickly run through what the bike is. So 312.2cc. I just mentioned we've got 35 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, and you've got 28.7 Newton meters of torque. On the track when we were riding it earlier, it didn't feel like the gutsiest motor in the world. The gearing felt quite low. In fact, first gear on this thing, I don't know why they installed it, because you can pretty much pull away in about third. But yeah, it's quite short geared. It's got not masses of low end grunt, but there is quite a nice rush to the red line as you're accelerating out of the corners. One thing I did feel on track, and that was the lean sensitive traction control. It was holding the bike back quite a lot as you were on high amounts of lean angle, and then as you straighten the bike back up, you could feel the engine power coming in and being allowed to get to the rear wheel by the traction control system. So that was quite good. And again, in the sort of countries where these are going to be launched first, which is the Asian market specifically, they will come to the UK further down the line, where the weather is, you know, tropical and rainy and the road surfaces aren't that good. That's going to be a good feature to have. The braking system on the bike is all right, but it was hogtied by suspension that for me was too soft on standard settings, so it needed more preload and it needed more rebound damping. There is some adjustability at the front and the rear. Whether or not it's going to be enough that you can dial all of that out, I'm not too sure. Overall though, at speed it wasn't too bad, it wasn't too vibey, and it felt, you know, just as good as you'd expect from a bike which in another world is branded as a BMW. One thing I haven't spoken about in this review is the price. Like I said, this bike isn't going to be initially coming to the UK. It's going into the Asian markets first, and then it will trickle down. And I think that's the whole reason why we're here, is that TVS wants to get a bit more of a footprint in Europe and in the UK. But converting the Indian price to GB pounds at today's date starts at around about £2,300, which is pretty good value. You've got to obviously take into account that there is going to be import costs and there is going to be taxation on it and stuff like that. So that is not a confirmed UK price in any way, shape or form. But right out the blocks, it is a cheap and cheerful motorcycle that's got a hell of a lot of tech features. It's got a decent engine, if not totally ridiculously gutsy at the bottom end. And the only real problem that I found with it today was that the handling was just a little bit wayward, because the suspension had been set up far too soft for my liking, especially for riding on track. But like I said, there is some adjustment there that you can try and dial that out. Like I said, eventually these things are going to start trickling into the UK and Europe. And if anything, it might give a little bit of a window into what the next BMW G310 could become with all of this advanced electronics. There is a full written review on Visordown.com, and there is also a full information article giving you all of the tech specs and details of the new model. So if you want to find out a bit more, get yourself over to Visordown.com. And if you've liked that video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of Visordown's latest videos. That's all from me, folks. Cheers.